Hey, let's explore using unit cost analysis for looking at raising your prices, especially when you feel you have a lot of increased expenses. Say you're facing a sudden spike in the cost of your packaging, plus you need to give raises to your farm crew. How can you know what price increase will cover those rising costs with more than just a gut feeling or saying, yeah, this is what the market can bear? Well, the unit cost analysis is a great place to assess all this. And we're going to look at an example of a unit cost analysis from Bogus Blueberry Farm. It's a mid sized organic wild blueberry farm that manages 80 acres. And I'm sharing here a page that is part of a bigger spreadsheet that Jed Beach of FarmSmart built for my wild blueberry farm, but I've adapted it, like any template, to the needs of this farm. And so a wild blueberry farm is basically a one enterprise farm, just one crop, and it's a 2 year production cycle with a very short harvest season each year. So this is a pretty complex spreadsheet covering all the costs over the 2 year cycle. And this particular tab we're looking at, it has the final page where all the variable expenses are brought together, including producing, processing, packaging, and marketing, and they're added to the fixed costs from the farm, and that gives you the final unit cost for the two primary units that this farm sells, a 5 pound box and a 10 pound box. So most of the columns in this sheet are made up of other components. They're the totals of various costs incurred along each step of the way. To quickly show you, here are the pieces to the production cost column, which are linked to another tab in the spreadsheet where the labor and materials of pruning the field, the weed, pest control, pollination, harvesting, all gets calculated to give the total cost per pound of growing and harvesting the berry. Similarly, the processing cost is a sum of how many pounds of berries are processed by how many people at what rate. That gives you the processing cost per unit. Then the packaging cost includes the cost of the actual 5 pound box or 10 pound box, the labeling, plus the labor it takes to put the berries in those boxes. And then the marketing cost for Bogus Blueberry Farms, they sell their berries at farmers market. So they account for paying two employees to go to the market, what the vehicle expense rate is at 70 cents per mile to get to market, and then how many of each package gets sold at market to give you the marketing cost per unit. And those four columns are added together to give you the total variable cost per unit. Then from another tab, the total fixed costs of the farm are brought in, added to the variable costs to give you that final unit cost in the green column. Beyond that, in blue and orange, you have the places where you put in your retail prices for each unit, and then that gives you the net margin for each. So this is what Bogus Blueberry Farm had planned. But going into this year, they not only got hit with an unexpected spike in the cost of their waxed boxes that they use, but they also had several good employees who want to return. So they wanted to give raises to the harvest crew. To look at this scenario, I took the time to create new lines here in rows 7 and 8 that captures all these rising costs. And let's start with the labor, which shows up in a couple of places in the processing, packaging, and marketing cost columns. So if they want to give a 75 cents an hour raise, let's start here in the processing section where you see they used to pay 17.50 and they're going to go up to 18.25 an hour. That's a 4.3% raise. And of course, this additional cost then immediately shows up in about a 3 cent per pound increase in their total processing costs. Then in the packaging section, it captures the labor it takes to put the berries in each box. And here, with the raise, it puts up their total packaging costs a few pennies. And finally, in the marketing section, a couple employees going to farmers market puts those marketing costs up from 87.50 up to 91.25. So there's the increase in the labor costs. And now let's look at the cost in their packaging back here in the packaging section. I put in the big spike, and these numbers are based in reality. And a couple years ago, the company who made our waxed boxes suddenly announced that the 5 pound boxes were going up from $1.10 to $1.95. That was a 77% increase in 1 year, and the 10 pound boxes went from $1.60 each up to $2.40, a 50% increase. And that was just like a punch in the gut. It feels like, oh my God, our costs are going up like insane. But this is where the unit cost analysis gives you more than just a gut reaction. When all those numbers are plugged in, the labor and the packaging, you total up your new final unit cost, seen here in green, and you see that all that only brought a little more than $1 to the total unit cost. And for a reality check, here in pink, I've calculated the percentages, and it's less than a 5% increase in the total cost for the 5 pound box and only 2.7% increase for the 10 pounders. So these are numbers that are just objective, black and white, but they give you so much grounding. You can see your costs didn't go up 77%, they went up about 5%. And it's good to see what's really going on and then be able to see what can be done about it and how you can communicate to your customers about it. Now let's consider what this all means for the pricing. Here in the blue and orange section, we see they used to sell the 5 pound box for $28. It cost them about $22, so that was a little more than a 20% margin. Pretty good. And then the 10 pound box sold for $50, cost them about $46, so that margin was 7.1%. And you see the different margins for the different sizes, as their marketing is based on the larger the volume, the lower the price per pound. But now, with their cost increases, you see their margins drop significantly. For the 10 pound box, it's down to 4.6%. But that's only if they hold their prices the same. Let's look at some options for raising their prices. I took the time to create a couple different options, seen here. In the light gray rows 11 and 12, I did a 3% increase in the prices. In the dark gray rows 13 and 14, I did a 5% increase. So that means selling the 5 pound box now at $28.84, which gives almost a 20% margin. Selling the 10 pounder at $51.50, a 3% increase, brings that margin up to pretty much where it was, a little over 7%. And then the 5% increase brings the 5 pound box up to $29.40, a 21% margin, much closer, even a little higher than the original margin. And the 10 pound box, now at $52.50, would give you a 9.2% margin. So those are a couple of options baked up and created in this land of make believe. But of course, in the real world, I don't think you're going to go to farmers market and sell something at $28.84. And, maybe you can't break $50 as a ceiling as the price of what customers will pay for a 10 pound box. I don't know. So let's consider a final option, a likely scenario. Well, down here in rows 16 and 17 in red, I say they raise the 5 pound box 3.6%. That means it goes up $1 from $28 to $29 each. And that brings that margin up a little over 20%, almost to what it was before. And then they raise the 10 pound box 4%, and that's being sold now at $52. It goes up $2 from the original 50, and that brings the margin for that up a little better than it used to be. So this is something that they can do and feel good about. They can tell their customers we had a 5% increase in our costs due to labor and packaging increases, so we raised our prices about 4% to cover that. And that's the idea of using these tools to empower your decision making. Now, for sure, a spreadsheet isn't going to guarantee those margins of profitability. There's no secret weapon hidden here in the spreadsheet that gives you some amazing superpower. The landscape of a unit cost analysis simply allows you to play out scenarios, to create a picture of reality, and then change that picture to suit your goals and needs. And I think, like any tool, it needs to be used in order to be useful, and it becomes more useful the more it's used. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is one in a series of farm financial topics that cover the chart of accounts, as well as cash flow projections and unit cost analysis spreadsheets. I hope you'll look those up. You can check the links below for more information.